So, yeah, basically, just wanted to have a chat to you about what you're doing and, yeah, how the process is coming along and get a bit of background information in what you do. So, yeah, is that okay with you?
Yeah, no worries, Neil. I'm a bit restricted as to what I can talk about as regard current cases before the discrimination tribunal, but I'm free to talk about debanking of industry groups in general.
Okay.
Um, no worries. I can also speak generally about my cases,
Yeah.
but probably not much more that's out there in the media at the moment.
Yeah, well, generally with these court cases, they try to keep a lot of the nitty gritty facts under wraps until,
For sure.
obviously, till the judge sort of makes a decision, and then that's when they can obviously release it out in public. But yeah, so have you been getting a lot of media speculation or media, awareness about what you're doing at the moment?
No, there hasn't been a lot of attention.
Mm,
There was a story written in the Financial Review back in January, and
okay.
that was copied in countless publications around the world.
Yeah.
But and some of them paraphrased it.
Yeah.
Some of them just copied. A lot of Bitcoin publications were
Yeah.
interested in it. But since then, there's been very little. So since the Senate hearings recently
Mm,
discussed the topic of debanking quite extensively.
all right.
Some of the papers in Australia have started writing about it, and yeah, there was an article in the Age Sydney Morning Herald last week covering my situation.
Okay. So yeah,
So
it's
that's
it's it's one of those new areas where like the times need to change or the banks and the systems need to update to become more familiar with, I guess what we're talking about today mainly is cryptocurrency, yeah?
Yes. Well, there's been a general reluctancy from the banks since 2014 to really accept cryptocurrency businesses
Mm,
as legitimate, even though there's been nothing unlawful about running cryptocurrency business in Australia
mm,
um, over that time period. But the banks have generally been reluctant to accept the legitimacy of these sorts of businesses.
mm.
Um, it's hard to really say why, really.
Okay. So what is it that you actually do for a living within the crypto space?
So from August 2017 until December 2019, I was operating a digital currency exchange.
Okay.
And primarily, I was operating that on the platform Local Bitcoins,
Okay, yeah.
which is a platform which introduces buyers and sellers of Bitcoin. They
Okay.
hold the Bitcoin in escrow and release it once the seller acknowledges receipt of payment from the buyer.
Okay, yeah.
So that's that operation. I was running an over the counter business in parallel with that. So clients off Local Bitcoins would sometimes move across to over the counter. So that was the extent of my operations over that
Okay.
period. But I was operating as a digital currency exchange then. I
Mm,
became registered in 2018 as
yeah.
required by law as a
Yeah.
digital currency exchange, and finished operations in December 2019, mainly due to the fact that I could not find a bank to support my business. And by support, I mean I was only asking them to provide me basic financial services in the form of a transactions account. I wasn't requiring any credit, no loan, nothing like that. It was just a plain vanilla account I was requiring. I made that clear. Just transactions in, payments from customers,
Yep.
and I would send the money to my suppliers for Bitcoin,
Yep.
and they would send me Bitcoin back. So it was basically a two-way street in the transaction accounts, nothing fishy.
Okay. So basically, the banks just basically cut you off. Is that right? Is that because that's what I've read so far?
So, in respect of the way that banks typically debank a customer is that they usually give 30 days notice, but not always.
Okay.
It's common practice,
Yeah.
accepted practice in banking and financial and business circles, in fact, to give people 4 weeks notice. But and they would rarely provide any reasons, if any at all, other than saying it's not your fault, it's not the way you use the account, but in accordance with our terms of our service, we no longer wish to provide you services.
Okay.
So, and that's it.
So they never really gave you any valid explanation, more that they just tried to hide behind red tape. Is that right?
Sometimes they would refer to risk, but very rarely in a letter notifying you of forthcoming closure would they say that. It's only when pressed further. So, for instance, I did take my complaints against some banks to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, which is a statutory authority which is run by banking industry.
Okay.
And sometimes they will consider the facts of the case, but usually when that complaint is brought before AVCA, the subject of risk may well come up.
So,
but rarely would they give any details about what sort of risk they were concerned about.
okay. And so through this journey of trying to get down to the bottom of this, basically, and you hope to get your business back up and running, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the possibility of running my business again. So what I'm asking the tribunal for in these two complaints against major Australian banks is that I'm asking if the tribunal finds in the affirmative for me that they order the banks to stop refusing to provide me services.
Yeah, because your case here, from what I see, it's really a bit of a game changer, and it's something that we hope that would, change the rules for the future or set precedents for future cases. Because I know with the corporate companies, they like to be on top of the case. Obviously, they use all sorts of tactic and strategies, but one of the main things that a lot of people find is they'll draw this case out as long as they can to basically mess with the mental health of the person that's actually putting the case forward. In your journey as well, how long has this process been going?
I lodged my complaints first with the ACT Discrimination Commission in December 2019. So they progressed to the Discrimination Tribunal in August 2020. And so it's been running for the best part of probably 20 months.
Oh, wow. So it's a bit of a long time. Has it made much effect on your mental health in trying to push this case forward and as you're fighting through it?
It's a long road, that's for sure. I was self-representing all the way until basically a month and a half ago. So it's an emotional roller coaster for sure. There's lots of unexpected potholes and circumstances that crop up. So, my fortitude has been tested along the way, very much so. So, over the last year, I've been unable to work in, my current industry very much at all, on the basis that I've been running these lawsuits, and the amount of paperwork, the amount of submissions, the amount of things that I actually need to provide to the tribunal is, sometimes appears overwhelming, but we got through to this stage at least. So we're now 3 weeks away from final hearings. So most of the work's been done. Okay. But for sure, it's testing as far as courage, emotional strength, emotional stability, peace, personal peace. All of that stuff is certainly challenged by cases like these.
Yeah, well, it's no easy feat, I'll tell you that right now. It's a long, drawn-out process. So, have you been funding this case yourself? Like, I know you said you were self-representing up until about a few months ago. So from here on out, you've obviously gotten you've seek legal advice, legal counsel. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm now represented in the tribunal by lawyers and a barrister. So that since August, and that is great reassurance to me to be ably represented by skilled professionals. So, but as far as the funding goes, entirely self-funded. I have received a few donations, but the costs along the way, even though it didn't cost me anything to actually lodge the submissions with the tribunal or the complaints for that matter. I was funding research, paying students to do research on my behalf and assist in drafting documents along the way. The workload can be tremendous in those sort of situations.
Yeah.
And since I've appointed lawyers, I've been funding those entirely. And it's certainly not a cheap exercise, but funding them from savings basically.
Wow. So have you got any funding campaigns going to help you throughout the process? Because you were just mentioning that you were getting donations and stuff like that.
Yes, there is a crowdfunding page that's been set up. There's been a group of friends who have rallied around who believe in my fight here for justice, and they've also identified a wider cause in the possibility of a precedent perhaps being set where under discrimination law, I believe this is the first Bitcoin human rights cases to be heard in any court anywhere in the world, and certainly in Australia, the right of an organisation to refuse service based on someone's protected attribute is certainly something which may create a precedent in law. There's been a website set up with the assistance of my friends, and that is Bitcoin v Bank's website, and it's got a lot of information about debanking, about industry groups that are not favoured by banks, and there's a link from that page to a crowdfunding page which has been set up to assist as well. So I've received a few small donations, and look, any little bit helps, let me tell you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It all adds up, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, one way or another, I'll be paying for these lawsuits as time goes on, for sure.
Well, what I see is with you, because, you're sort of the first I've heard of it, and that the fact that you're, could possibly be creating a precedence that I believe it's one of those things that I think that a lot of the crypto community within Australia should be rallying behind you with, purely because this has the potential to affect them in the future. And we all know basically that the banks are not interested in cryptocurrency. They may be interested in the blockchain system, not to say, they might be interested in that quite a bit, because that's great technology there. But the whole Bitcoin, I can understand they really don't want to play with it, because the minute you get into a store of value that doesn't require a third party, then there is no real need for the banks. And, they heavily rely on people putting their money into the bank so they can take that money and go on and do other things with it. So therefore, they still want your money. But if you find there's a way to be able to put your money elsewhere, well, then, they're not going to agree with it. If anything, they're going to do whatever they can to try and push it in the background, sort of like what the companies did when, I think I've heard the story about the water-powered car that was created in the mid, 20th century. Yeah. And those plans just get shelved because, they get bought by the oil companies and get shelved because it's a direct competition, and that's what cryptocurrency is. But they don't have the right to actually tell us what to do with it. And if someone else wants to accept it as a form of payment, they shouldn't be able to stop people. The only problem we have at the moment is we still require fiat. So the exit point from a cryptocurrency is the bank. And if they are abusing or affecting our right to get access to that store of value, well, then what they're doing is not really right. So that's why I really applaud you for what you're doing here, because it would take a lot of courage as well, not only just the money, because you may get backlash or whatever. You don't know what's happening in the background behind, and all you can do is fight your own fight, yeah?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The banks are definitely the gatekeepers between the fiat rails and the digital currency world. And I think they appreciate that fact well and truly. And banks are a necessity, let's face it. We need banks to operate every days of our lives. We're operating in a dollar world. We need to spend dollars and we need to receive dollars.
Yeah.
And if we want to operate in a cryptocurrency world as well, and we have every right to do so, we need access to our dollars to spend in that world. And so banks are providing a necessary service. In 2019, there was $15 billion worth of digital currency exchange conducted in Australia. I shudder to think what it's going to be like in 2021.
Yeah.
If I said 2019, I meant 2020. So 15 billion in 2020. In 2021, I'm assuming it's going to be at least triple that. So there are banks providing services, either knowingly or unknowingly. A lot of people are conducting private cryptocurrency transactions through the major banks, and they say they are not blocking those transactions. However, I've heard plenty of stories from individuals who say that banks have blocked their personal digital currency transactions. But definitely most of the major banks are saying publicly that they will not provide services to digital currency exchanges. I can't talk about the particular banks in my cases, what they're saying or what they may not be saying, but they don't appear to be particularly different, stand out than the others. But yes, for a digital currency exchange, access to banking services is an absolute necessity. But I will note on that matter that one of Australia's largest digital currency exchanges, BTC Markets, has just last week announced a relationship's been established with Vault Bank, who are known as one of Australia's premier neobanks.
Okay.
And Vault Bank will be providing BTC Markets exchange services, transaction services for their digital currency exchange, which is great news. So at last, there is a bank providing services.
So
whether or not a bank like that can provide me services in the future, who knows? But I'm assuming they're starting with the biggest of digital currency exchanges, and we'll see how that goes in the future.
Well, the thing is, I guess, this is a really good thing that you've put out, because I don't think a lot of people know about this Vault Bank. I don't, this neobank. These neobanks are a new thing that's really started to appear in the last few years, where pretty much they're an online bank with no real staff. They do have staff, but obviously they're all in head offices and stuff like that. It's not like you've got a customer service face-to-face experience, but knowing that they're going to help you with your with currency, that's a really good thing, I guess. Like, I will actually look into that myself, because nobody really wants to have any obstacles when they're taking their money out from crypto. But yeah, so if these guys become more and more popular, then obviously the big four banks, they're not going to lose market share just over crypto. They'll make some changes. So that's a really good thing. Like, have you delved much more into these guys? Like, have you heard a lot? Like, is there a lot of good stuff you've been hearing about this Vault Bank?
Well, so I've been looking for transaction services with other banks since December 2019, and this is the first that I've heard of a bank actually willingly providing services to a digital currency exchange. So it will be interesting to see how the space develops, definitely. I would note that banks aren't just restricting services to digital currency exchanges. As the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman pointed out in May 2020, banks are also refusing to provide services to sex workers, tattoo parlours, newsagents offering remittance services through Western Union and such forth, and bullion dealers as well. I've also heard recently about complaints from firearms dealers and
Wow.
also cash in transit businesses that banks are not particularly willing to provide them services either. So it
That,
seems that the banks have a list of customers that they're not willing to provide services to, and they're pretty much digging their heels in on those matters.
did you say cash in transit earlier?
Yes, indeed.
That's
There was a
bizarre.
cash in transit business who I saw is suing one of the larger banks for uh, breaching contract. I believe.
Oh,
I
wow.
believe the law referred to there is,
Mm.
of course, a breach in law contract lawsuit can't establish a case law precedent.
Mm.
That will all be dealt with between the bank and that individual customer. It wouldn't really affect, from my understanding, how the bank would deal with other customers in that industry following.
Yeah, no, they're a funny entity, the banks. Not a really big fan of them, and it's disappointing. Like you hear things like this, and the government really doesn't step in. They sort of just sit in the background unless it affects a large population of people. Then only will the banks step in. But within this crypto space, you would think they would the ball rolling a bit more because, well, you know, we all know that El Salvador's made it a legal currency now, Bitcoin, but just the amount of money that it would bring into the country through the traders if the government helped this out, and it's not just the traders, it's everyone else, whether it's the mum and pop investors or it's, someone that's interested in the space. You got a lot of the meme coins and stuff like that, which is starting to really become the gateway into the crypto space. So over time, as people get into these Doge coins and, was it the Shibu one, you're just going to be bringing more and more people into the space. So, yeah, like especially after last year with the government giving away so much money due to COVID, or with the pandemic, trying to help families out. You think that the bank would be wanting to bring more money into the country and making the banks, the government bring more money into the country and getting the banks to comply, yeah?
Exactly. Well, it has been a hot topic in the Senate recently.
Mm.
The Senate Economics Committee's been meeting over the course of the year, and their inquiry into Australia as a financial and technology centre has heard numerous testimonies and received many submissions on the subject, addressing the subject of debanking. There were submissions called for, and by the end of June this year, the inquiry received 27 submissions, if I can recall correctly, directly addressing the topic of debanking, including from two of the major banks also addressed the issue in their submissions. I provided a submission as well, and AUSTRAC also provided a submission. It was very interesting to hear what AUSTRAC had to say. It was the second time in the last 6 years that AUSTRAC has actually denied that the anti-money laundering counter-terrorism financing rules require a bank to deplatform any particular trader, let alone an entire industry. And AUSTRAC actually said in their June 30 submission that that the debanking of an entire industry went above and beyond the requirements of the AML-CTF Act.
Okay, what's that? That act?
Okay, so the Anti-Money Laundering Counter-Terrorism Financing Act is the law which governs financial institutions in Australia regarding their obligations to monitor transactions and report transactions for suspicious matters regarding money laundering and terrorism financing. So you will find that banks are subject to the AML-CTF Act, also other reporting entities such as digital currency exchanges since 2018, other financial sector operators, I believe loan businesses, I believe currency remittance providers are required to register as reporting entities under the Act as well.
Okay, so yeah, so really, they- they're using rules that need to be updated, basically, and you know, stopping people from being able to use cryptocurrency and really just trying to demotivate people. Yeah.
Well, the Senate has said, Senator Andrew Bragg, in fact, has said that he's heard the complaints and they sympathise with people who have had their businesses affected by debanking.
Mm.
And he's said that they hope to do something about it in some new rules that might be forthcoming. The banks have told the Senate that they require new rules in order for the capability to provide services to digital currency exchanges.
Mm.
However, I will note that the bank said exactly the same thing in a Senate inquiry in 2015 and said that if know your customer requirements were practiced by digital currency exchanges, that they would certainly consider providing them services. Well, in 2018, when know your customer requirements became an obligation of law to digital currency exchange services, I don't believe that bank changed their policy at all to digital currency exchanges. So whether the banks can be trusted the second time around, I'm not sure. We'll
Yeah.
have to wait and see.
Yeah, they only say what they have to say just to make the audience happy, and obviously that's what they did in 2015. Now they come now. Yeah, all the exchanges are pretty hard on KYC. You know, like Binance. I think it was this week or last week they really upped the ante a bit. So yeah, like we're all following the rules. Just got to get the banks, to you know come on our side, I guess. Yeah.
I think we're definitely living in a time where KYC, if it's not a requirement already, will be in the short future for everyone operating in digital currency. But yeah, also at the same time, you need to appreciate that a large part of the digital currency developers are working on any way possible to get around um, oversight,
Mm.
obligation, or indeed interference by third parties. So privacy is a huge issue in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I get that, and there is some ways, like how can I say, not ways around a bit. Like yeah, no one should know how much money you hold in your bank account, so it should be the same with cryptocurrency. So I don't mind like some of these privacy ones, like Monero. I know they're not well looked upon, you know, by law, purely because you can hide information or hide your bank balance. But you can still give your address. Well, unlike Bitcoin, once you give someone your address, they can see your bank balance. But the problem with Monero is you can't see where the money runs around, and so therefore they can't really monitor it. And I get it because, like you say about terrorism and stuff. But yeah, the developers, they're getting around it, and eventually there'll be a way. I think one of the currencies out there, if you're a governing body and you need to get access to someone's account, if you provide some sort of document, obviously, that you'll probably need to get signed off by a judge, then they'll help you get access to the account. And I think these are the things that need to come in play for future adoption, because you still got to, like, we all have a right to our money. We have a right to how we use it. We shouldn't have to show anyone what we have. But at the same time, there's got to be something in place in case of your drug dealers or your terrorists and stuff like that, because unfortunately what they're doing is not right, but what they do is affecting the rest of us normal people, you know what I mean?
Yes, I believe government will use any reason, any valid reason they can to bring regulation to any industry they can. Also, the government have a requirement to fund their services. But one has to ask the question: how much service has the government provided in establishing cryptocurrency to date? I've been scratching my head on that one for quite a while.
Well, the only thing they care about is how much money is coming into the country so they can tax you. That's all I believe. Because I was surprised today, this financial year, my I do my tax on my own, and it was auto-filled there ready to say, yeah, you've claimed some crypto, you need to declare it now. Or you cashed out some crypto, you need to declare it. And I understand that. That's the exchanges I'm using. They're transferring the information to the ATO so they can stay in business. I just believe the government needs to do a bit more about it and actually understand the space a lot better. Because I've had friends and family who have worked at the ATO, and I've got them to talk to people that sort of make rules and stuff like that there. And unfortunately, they all don't know much about it at all. Do you know what I mean?
It's not surprising. It's not surprising, my friend.
Yeah, so I think to everyone out there, they need to really make sure they have a good accountant. That's the first thing. Because, and have an accountant that's actually played around in the space, because there's so much coming out of it that, the banks are going to really be losing out in the end, because you've got all these different DeFi, interest. The interest one blows me away. You take a stable coin, put it into one of these platforms like Celsius or crypto.com, and you actually make more interest than what you get from the banks. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that wouldn't be hard. Getting negative 0.5% in your bank account or whatever it is these days. You're lucky if you come out even at the end of the day, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then they got their fees as well, where like I use Celsius, I put stable coins in there, whatever I would normally put away for savings. And I basically get way more interest than the banks, and they're just going to lose out, I guess, at the end of the day if they don't comply, or get more involved in it, because people are just going to move away from them. A lot of these, like even the lending platforms as well, they're not really part of the banks. And so I think it was P2P lending. The banks have really got a lot to lose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, look, things are moving so rapidly. It's I'm sure the banks are being taken by surprise every day.
Yeah.
Legacy financial institutions need to catch up, and they need to catch up in a hurry. Well, one of Australia's major banks was a significant shareholder in Coinbase until its public offering this year, I believe, or their listing this year. It went public. I'm not sure what that bank situation is in terms of exposure to digital currency these days, but one would expect those banks would need to start moving to invest in the space at least. And you know what they say, if you can't beat them, you join them.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's what Alexander the Great did, yeah? Was it Alexander the Great? No, the Roman Empire. Who was he? Can't remember his name right now, but he ended up joining the Catholic Church because he couldn't beat him. And this is the thing, they need to come onto our side. Otherwise, they'll just get left behind, and, everyone's really just going to see them for what they are. And this couple of years with the pandemic, a lot of things are going on in the background. So, they really need to get on board. Otherwise, they will get left behind.
Yes, we've all been blown away by the adoption of Bitcoin in Salvador and other nations looking to establish it as a currency. I believe Tonga have Bitcoin in its sites as well. In fact, Tongan Member of Parliament has joined my campaign, has endorsed it. That's Lord Fitzua, and he's very supportive of the cause. Tonga is a developing nation where large part of the economy is driven by dollars sent back from overseas by all the expats who have left to go and work in the developed world, in advanced economies and so forth. And so a large part of the developing world is actually supported by remittance payments from sent back, and the Lightning Network, for instance, is going to be a significant player. The Bitcoin network, the backbone. It's going to be the backbone of the future financial system, and the old systems are going to be left behind. I can't wait until Australia gets on the Strike network as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to because McDonald's. Because they had to take Bitcoin because it's legal tender in El Salvador, they've had to build the infrastructure behind it to be able to facilitate Bitcoin payments. And I'll tell you right now, no corporation invests money to build technology without rolling it out if they can to wherever they can, if you know what I mean. So McDonald's has stores around the world. They will eventually roll that out everywhere else, just like they did with McCafe, which was tested here. So they will roll it out, and it also gives McDonald's a good opportunity to also put Bitcoin on their books, just like Tesla did. So yeah, look, I really look forward to the future. I'm pegging, basically
Exciting times for sure, isn't it?
Yeah, well, 2030, I reckon the whole thing will be in full swing of adoption. It's just about, we've got these gateways now, like I said, with the meme coins. And this will bring through the younger generation being knowledge on cryptocurrency and being a part of their life when they reach their, 20s and 30s, if you know what I mean. Because at the moment, they're all teenagers.
For sure. And Bitcoin, the network, is, as they say, it's eating the world. I'm not sure you had the chance to see the interview recently between Anthony Pompliano and Jack Marlis, the founder of Strike, the Strike app. But it was a real eye-opener. Those guys are super bullish. They're pumped. They're convinced that app is going to take over the world. And as you probably heard, that Twitter is announced tipping in Sats now using the Strike app. So
that's cool.
Where next? That's the big question.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. They had the Graph network, which were building some software to put on top of the terminals, the FFOS terminals, but haven't seen too much from them, but I'm just waiting for that. But the good thing is at the moment, CoinJar actually has the ability to, you can use the NFC function on your phone and use crypto to pay for goods and services when you're out, but it's not still yet where we want to be, but it's at least something that gives us some sort of movement forward, if you know what I mean.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, look,
absolutely.
I want to thank you very much for your time, Allan, today. It was a really interesting chat, having a chat about what you're going on. What I'll do is I'll leave some links in the description below to everyone out there. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and smash the like button if you enjoyed this video. And if you've got any questions, feel free to, or any comments, leave them in the comments section below. And maybe I could have a chat with you in the future, Allan, after you've done this case, yeah?
Yeah, for sure, Neil. I just, if I can let your listeners know, the website on debanking is called bitcoinvbanks.com. And there's a donations page off there, the crowdfunding page. You can donate using the Stripe network, STRIP application, sorry, not a network. And you can pay by card there, or you can pay using Bitcoin or Sats. All their donations are entirely anonymous. And, it's not about the amount you donate. It's just the support received and encouragement received when I know someone's made a donation, even the smallest amount.
Yeah, well.
There's also for your listeners, there's a Twitter handle called Bitcoin v Banks. And anyone who's on Twitter, if you feel like supporting the campaign or hearing more about debanking, please add as a friend, follow, support the tweets, and let's see where this goes. Keeping our fingers crossed for 3 weeks' time when the final hearings are in the tribunal.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear the end result. Look, I'm rallying behind you, and I encourage everyone in the crypto community in Australia to definitely get behind you, because this all affects our future. And yeah, I wish you all the best with the hearings coming up, Allan.
Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand.